Here we are back again at our travel example, and let's today do some more with Hazu and show you guys how to annotate a timeline with a video. So inside of my trip to the ATP World Tour Finals, I would like to have a little video annotated that gives some overview about the city. So I'm going to create a new Hazu underneath where I will add a video to then tag certain highlights of a London city tour video. So I make this a Hazu and dive into it. Now, when we tag a video, one of the things that is the most important before we add the video is that we say, when does this Hazu start? So this either has a date to it or it's something where we say this whole thing has no date. So in this case, I'm going to say this has a date. The video I'm going to use is this one here from the London City Tour. So I'm going to copy the link from the URL bar, and I'm going to say this started on June 1st, 2017. So I can use this here to navigate June 1st. The time 11 a.m. is okay. Now I'm not going to set the end date because this is going to be automatically determined as soon as I add the video. So clicking this video, I can paste in a URL from any video that's on YouTube or Vimeo or Moving Image Player. Hazu is now asking me whether I want to automatically set the length. As we see here, the timeline wouldn't know when it should end, but after I confirm this dialog, it will directly adjust this to be the same length as the video. What I can do now is I can close the assistant, start playing the video, and have a look at what we see in it. So normally the experience on a YouTube video is like this, right? So we have a lot of information. Luckily here we have some information about the contents, but we don't really see where what is, right? So even if this starts with a little scenic flight over London, I still don't really see where that happens. So I could say I created a little marker called flyover, save this, and now that I say this is where that happens in the video, I can now use the left and right keys to jump inside of this video and say, okay, this is pretty much the part where we do the flyover. So what I'm going to do now that I know where that is, I'm going to go to the start of where the flyover begins, and I'm going to simply click this little pin icon. This is now placing the flyover item that I just created inside of the timeline with a standard duration of 30 seconds, since Hazu cannot know how long this item is lasting for. So what I can do now is I can keep playing, again with the left and right arrow keys. I can jump 5 minutes back and forth to the place where the flyover ends. At this point, I can press the space bar to stop my video, and now press a key that's very important when annotating video content, and it's the O key. O will simply mark the output, and as you've seen, as soon as I click the O key, this has extended from the 30-second standard duration to the position where my cursor is right now. Let me look at the next point where they might talk about the Westminster Cathedral. I can again play the video, jump to the position where they talk about that, place it. As you've seen, I can also do this as the video is playing. And now I can jump to the position where we go to Buckingham Palace. Again, now that Westminster is over, I can press spacebar, can press the O key, and if you notice here what happens to the timeline, this will simply set the endpoint of the Westminster marker. The next one is going to be Buckingham Palace. And of course, as with everything, we still have the descriptions, the icons, and everything at our disposal. So if this is a highlight I really want to visit, I can maybe give this a special icon. I can, of course, Google this and add additional information, be it from Wikipedia or other places. And that's the idea of being able to collaborate and also plan a trip using Hazu, highlighting the most interesting parts of a city in this case, or even of my planned journey. Another thing I want to show you is an alternative way of placing the button, right? So if I don't want to use this button, I can also go via the cogwheel and say, sorry, I have to place it via this button, but once it's placed, I can actually also find the endpoint or define the endpoint by using the cogwheel here and saying the position at the cursor actually marks the end and not the start. If I were to press start, the whole marker would move to the 2:07 position. If I press end, it simply ends here. So this is another way of doing it. For the power users, I also want to show you a way how, for Westminster Abbey, for example, I can place the marker, but I can create the marker, but place it with the same key action. So if I press new item, this is my title. Now, instead of saving it and then pressing the pin, I can on the Mac press Alt Enter, and you see what happens now. Alt Enter has placed the icon directly in the current cursor position. Now I can fast forward again to Elizabeth Tower, mark O. Another shortcut here for new item is N, like new item. And now again, Alt Enter. I fast forward until I have the next point. I press O. I press N for new item, Palace of Westminster. And then again, Alt Enter to create and place the item immediately. So you see that without even touching my mouse or trackpad, I can annotate the entire video. Another thing I want to show you is how to navigate even easier. So instead of using just the normal 5-second steps with the left and right arrow keys, I can also use the shift and left and right arrow keys. So holding shift and then left and right arrow, this will jump in my timeline 15 seconds at a time. And if I press Alt on the Mac, I can also jump a whole minute. As you can see, this allows me to jump inside of this video very quickly and place items, create new items, move them, set ins and outputs without having to really use the mouse too much. I can also drag and drop inside of the timeline to scrub inside the video to really find a position that I need very quickly. Let's explore some of the other things we can do in terms of customizing this Hazu. As we've seen already, the user has the layout options to minimize that video and display it on the right-hand side in a smaller version. If we want to enforce this as an administrator, we can do this in the settings under layout and say minimize video. This way, this will be a setting that for every user, if I refresh this page, for example, will be displayed like that, as you can see here. I like this layout, especially if I have a lot of content on the left-hand side, or if on the right-hand side, this is just a video of me talking or of a person. So a lot of the content, including slides or additional information, are to be found on the left-hand side. Let me add some more information here in the London City Tour and show you what our WYSIWYG editor is also capable of. Let's, for example, click here in the title. You see that in the title we have some of the normal options that we normally find in a word processing application. If we go to add description, here we have even more stuff, because in this block of text we can not only have normal text as we have in the title, we can embed rich media, we can link to things, we can add images, we can embed URLs, and even upload files. Let me create a simple table here for the different locations we want to see in our flyover, for example. This could be something like a schedule, so it could be time and location. And I could say at 10 we want to be in Soho, the city center. Then at 12 we want to be in Camden at the Camden Market. And then at 2 we would like to be in East London eating Indian food. It's delicious there. Check it out. So I can also delete rows again. I can play with the table style and say alternate rows, for example. I can move these rows around and I can save this. You see that with these buttons, people can also comment and like this Hazu. However, in the layout settings, I can also turn some of these things on and off. Or these two things specifically are not found in the layout settings, they're found in the interaction settings. So if I say hide votes and hide comments, I can turn both of these buttons off. This would be useful for something that is maybe public, but I don't want everybody to comment on every single item. I can still go and turn on, under this button here, the questions tab and the chat tab, so people would ask their questions or have their chat messages be added to this tab without it being somewhere inside of every single item. So this is really a question depending on the concept you have for this Hazu. Let's explore some more options we have with text inside of this editor. So for example, if I want to link the word City of Westminster, I can simply highlight it and insert a link. Now I paste the URL to the website of the City of Westminster here. I can select whether, if I click on this link, this is going to open in a new tab or not. And I'm going to insert it. Now this looks nice. This is a link that I can click. However, sometimes it's nice to have something like an additional button. So I can maybe type in website, link this thing again, paste it in. So this is going to be an alternative way of reaching that website. But this time, clicking on the website word, I can adjust the style for this to be a gray button, a blue button, a green, or a red button. I like the blue button here, so I'm going to leave it like that. Another thing we can do inside of any item is we can add additional text. This is something that we can do with the Add More Info button. So let's say I have a question about how many people fit into Westminster Abbey. I could use this Add More Info button to have the answer. I don't know how many it is. Let's say it's 5,000. Then I can save this under this Read More Info button. So if I save it, you will see that the main text, the description, is still going to be visible here. But if I have a Read More Info button, I can display this here. In this field, I have the same options as everywhere else. So I can add tables, further information, images, whatever you want. This is a nice way to also keep this overview quite lightweight and have maybe some further reading or background information hidden underneath this button. We looked at this button earlier here at the settings for this Hazu, where we can set a location. This would simply display the location inside of here. So if I do this, that's how it's going to look like, giving me some overview of where this is. This also supports full addresses. So this is like the Google Maps API in the background working for us. Then under layout, we also have additional layout options. Like we can hide the entire sidebar. For example, if I undo the minimization of the video and I hide the sidebar, you will see what this does. We can hide this. For some Hazus, it's actually nicer if we don't have this in the way. As you might have seen, if we go to the Hazu front page, this website itself, this entire thing is a Hazu in itself. So you see here that all of that you see here is simply another Hazu where we have turned off the sidebar on the right-hand side. Furthermore, I can also hide, for example, this title section here. So if I want to hide the page title and maybe also show the share buttons. Now with the share buttons turned on, we have this row of buttons here where we can share our link to this Hazu directly on one of those channels. In addition, now that we've turned off the page title, you see that this has been removed. And I could, for example, click in the description of this Hazu and customize one, say London, my city tour. And now I can select this, maybe with the paragraph formatting, give it my own header, and now customize a bit more. So sometimes we have a Hazu where we don't really want to use the pre-built configuration of this header information, and we can do it a bit like this. Let's have a look at the different privacy settings that items and Hazus can have. This is my public profile, and this sub-Hazu called travel currently has the privacy public. This means that anybody who visits my profile here can see it. Inside of it, however, I have a sub-Hazu called ATP World Tour Finals. This is currently set to unlisted. This means that if I send this link of the travel Hazu to somebody who basically doesn't have specific access on this level, all they would see is the following. I can test this very easily by opening up an incognito window inside of my browser or using a different browser or even logging out. This way, if I'm not logged in, nobody will see my unlisted or private Hazus inside of this. Let's now dive into the ATP World Tour Finals Hazu and have a look at how we can share this unlisted Hazu with a friend. So I want to have this Hazu here sent to a friend so they can give me feedback, maybe comment on some of the restaurants. However, I don't want them to be able to access the different items that are private, like this ticket item. I can select the ticket item and make this private. And at this point, if I were to send this link now to a friend, they wouldn't be able to access it. But let's now check that this works 100%. So I copy my URL to this. I go to my other window where nobody is logged in, and I paste in the link that I would have sent that person by simply copying that from the browser bar. And I can see now that they see everything I want them to see, but not the tickets. You might have noticed that we left out one of the three options of privacy for the Hazu itself. There's a third option called private. If we select private, even though we have the link to the exact Hazu, a person still would only be able to access that Hazu if they're specifically mentioned. Let me illustrate how that works. By setting the privacy to private, if I now switch back to the other window again, where I have the exact link, that user would simply receive an error 404 page. Because they're not logged in with a specific user that is listed and authorized, they simply will not see that page. In order to give somebody access or a specific role in this Hazu though, we would have to list them in the sharing list. For that, I click the sharing button, where I can now invite people with their email address. As we've seen already in the previous tutorial where we invited my sister, I have made her an admin for this Hazu. We also see here that there are different roles. There's the viewer role that simply allows somebody to see the private items if a Hazu is private. Then there is the admin role, which allows people to create, delete, and edit items, and also manage the settings and the permissions. And there's the owner that can do all of that, and in addition can complete the entire Hazu, delete the Hazu as well.